I'd just like to say how much I enjoyed Anastasia's presentation. I think the analogy with water and it being like the water in the sea or in the pond is an analogy for culture, because I remember whenever I used to go away in my last company, we had a fish tank, and I would know if things are going well is how murky the water is in the tank itself. So I think in many ways a measurement for culture in an office could be to get yourself a fish tank and just measure it in that simple way. But anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about, is fish and water. Get Focused. So yeah, my name is Austin, the CEO and founder of Get Focused. And Get Focused is simply a technology or a web solution tool to help improve the productivity of remote meetings, which is certainly a hot topic at this moment in time. But the problem is, meetings suck. They're pretty shitty. They got a bad reputation, no? They're pretty dysfunctional. People are constantly distracted. They're on their phones. And rarely, like Noah said, decisions aren't made. But the problem is, now I'm going to say this and I'm going to pause, 15%, on average, 15% of salary budget is spent on meetings. 15%. Now, I'm going to have a quick show of hands. How many of you guys think that salary budget is time and money well spent? Can we have a quick show of hands? On average. Right, okay. So I think my assumption that meetings do suck and they're a complete time monster or sucking monster is a fair one. Thank you, you proved that for me. Now, why? Why do meetings lack engagement? Here I think no one wants to look ignorant. No one wants to look intrusive. No one wants to look incompetent. No one wants to look negative. And these are quite easy things to disguise, you know. So if you're ignorant, you don't ask questions. Why would I want to do that? I might be wrong. Intrusive. I don't want to offer ideas. No. Incompetent. Oh, yeah, I can't admit weaknesses. No, I don't know my stuff on that point. I'm not going to say anything about that. Negative. No one wants to critique the status quo. That's always how this has been done. I don't want to change that either. So this is very common. And it's all about the psychological safety in your team. Have you got that level of engagement and empathy in your team to strip these negative qualities away, let's say? Now, if you wanted to give your meetings an immediate kick up the arse or some CPR, let's say, I would simply offer these 3 bits of advice. Be human. It is okay to make mistakes. Anastasia talked about this in culture, about being open and being willing to make mistakes. Because at the end of the day, that's pretty much what you learn from. And I think if you just went into a meeting with a mindset of this is an opportunity to listen and learn, that immediately reframes your thinking about the meeting itself. And the last one is pretty simple as well. It's care to be curious. Ask questions. If there's something you don't understand or you actually don't agree with, ask questions and challenge that. Now, I'm going to put you guys on the spot here because this is not going to be a typical presentation, so I'm hoping to get some engagement. So if you don't ask me questions, I'm going to start asking you guys some questions. Is everyone okay with that? Yeah? First question I have now is, can you just give the person a foot tap? Someone a foot tap. We may be social distancing, but that doesn't mean we can't just give a hello to someone. So can I have a little foot tap to the person on your right or left or someone you don't know? That's it. Good. Okay. Very nice. Thank you. Right. So my story. I moved to Latvia many, many years ago, actually. I came here to effectively start an experience and team-building agency called Travel Out There. It's been great. It's still alive, just about. But I did actually come to a conclusion a couple of years ago, actually, thinking that what we were selling was this ability to create company culture outside the workplace. And then I just sort of had this bit of a slap in the face or a stark realization that that's not the case. I'm not selling something that it can play a part of building culture, but really culture best develops inside the workplace. And meetings, whether we like them or not, are prime opportunities for culture and for company culture to be developed. Typically, we sort of service companies that are purpose-led and have an employee or workforce of over 100 employees. But we've developed this tool based on the methodology of a book that we wrote called The 7 Habits for Highly Focused Meetings. Now, habits. We all got good habits, we've got bad habits. But in my mind, having fit, lean, mean meetings is all about having good habits going into those meetings. And the correlation between, let's say, the meeting habits you have and your company performance is actually very, very tight. I know that. When things were going well in my last company, we would have fun, like I was saying, jokey meetings or whatever. But at the end of the day, they weren't really serving a purpose. When things were going bad, the meetings were pretty shitty and everything was going bad. So I think in terms of working on your meeting habits can really affect the bottom line. And in many ways, it sounds quite Zen or quite Buddhist-like, but at the end of the day, thoughts create habits. Habits lead actions. Actions dictate effectively the success of your life or your business, however you want to interpret that. So in my mind, they're almost the fulcrum behind a happy and successful business or life. So these habits, let's start digging down. So we've split meetings up into 4 parts. At the end of the day, in a meeting, you have to instigate it. And I would like to just say, if you're going to take anything away from this talk, before you ever set a meeting, rather than just saying a title, saying, I'm meeting Helena at 11, think, what is the purpose? And if you can't come up with a purpose for the meeting, don't have it. The other 2 habits we would recommend at this stage is, yes, have 1 laptop, no phones, be present. Third one, if you're on a remote setting, which typically we do work in most, is make sure your camera on your laptop is at eye level. Simple things, but they do make quite a big impact. Okay, so we're going to go round this. This is the Get Focused loop. So we're going to go to the second part now. This is what we say, synergize. Now that's a bit of a pony word, but I think what we was trying to get people up to speed. And icebreakers, I'm not a big fan of icebreakers. We used to do a lot in our team building and company retreat days, but a really nice icebreaker that typically does work is the traffic light one. Is how are we feeling today? Are we a red, amber, or green? And if you just gauge the room, or not the room in this case, but when you're working with people remotely, just saying, hey, what are we? Are we a red, amber, or green? It can really just set a good tone for the meeting. If you know that you're dealing with a few people that are a little bit red, maybe just for that, in this green time, this synergizing time, just spend a little bit of time just saying, well, why? What's up? What's going on? You're not having all these touch points that you used to have when you were all in one building, living and working happily ever after. That has changed. We've got to accept it. And obviously, at this moment in time, it's very likely it's going to change to the end of the year. So start thinking you need to start helping each other out in these times. And the other one, especially in remote meetings, limit the participants. 7 is and there's a lot of stats. Jeff Bezos talks about the 2 pizza rule. There's a lot of information out there to suggest that 7 is the optimum number for a highly productive meeting. And I'm actually going to tweak that 60-minute as an ideal length. I would even suggest it's 45. We're not having that time in between meetings that we did have when we had back-to-back meetings, so you'd go and get your cup of coffee, go to the toilet or whatever, but we still need it. We're human after all. So factor in it being you have a 15-minute break in between from one meeting to the next. Okay, so we're going to keep going round. Thinking time. Now, I don't know. If you're extroverted, and this could be almost the meat of a meeting. The best part of the meeting for those that like brainstorming and the creative and innovative types, I quite like this part of the meeting, but often they go on too far. So you've got to limit the time here. But at the end of the day, there are people who aren't extroverted and really open and mouthy. So it's quite important to actually give some time for those people that aren't like that. So in the thinking time, just say, okay, we're going to have 5 minutes silent time within that 45 minutes, where people can just sit and they can talk, or they don't, think, right, not talk, think some of their ideas that they have. And then openly share them. And then evaluate them. And I'd like to stress on merit. It shouldn't be the person that always typically used to lead the meeting, whose ideas were pushed through the meeting. Spend some time to evaluate them. A really simple matrix that we use, it's based on this sort of 80-20 principle here, is just 20% of the work, or at least, almost it's their least effort, do the things of least effort, maximum profit. And at the end of the day, you can rank some of these ideas in this matrix. If they're high effort and high impact, can you think of ways to make them high impact with a little bit less effort? If they're low impact and low effort, it's probably not worth doing. And certainly if they're low impact and high effort, completely take them off the table. So you can use different tools to evaluate ideas, but really just stress that point on merit. Now we're getting into the fourth stage of the meeting, and one that is essentially why meetings are held, but pretty much more commonplace is the stage that you don't get to because you run out of time. And that's actually a case of agreeing. What is going to get done? What is the outcome of this meeting? And this is very important here, to simply just record them there and then. Set clear deadlines and essentially dedicate who's accountable. SMART goals, specific, measurable, accountable, realistic, time-bound. Look at that and really just stress that during the meeting. So we finished the loop, and this is, you'll see the 7 infamous highly focused habits for meetings. Free from distractions, open to engage, commit to success, so you understand the objectives, you share the ideas, you evaluate them, and most importantly of all, you do what's right. So, that's the loop. Okay. We talked, the meeting, this was also about creating rhythms for meetings. And I don't know about you, but I've sat in quite a few meetings where you're meeting for meet's sake. You know, you're not really sure why you're meeting. There isn't a clear agenda. You're just there in the room or on Zoom, and you're just talking away. And it's just like, well, why are we here? What are we talking about here? Is there a specific problem? And it just gets very convoluted in terms of what the key purpose of the meeting is. And it's called the meeting stew. And our brains aren't capable of just moving around as quickly as that would be expected to do. So we effectively created what we would like to say is a meeting rhythm. And it's sort of, Anastasia talked a bit about it in terms of where she has her yearly, her quarterly, and her monthly. And it is just simply committing to that rhythm itself. So, yeah, every quarter, it could be kind of, we say, quarter, but obviously once a year as well. But quarterly, you spend time with an action plan meeting. I don't know if you can see the barometer here, where actually there's more time dedicated in the meeting to agreeing on stuff. You don't need so much time synergizing and thinking. You're here to make action points, to set clear objectives for your company for the next quarter. End of story. That is what we're here to meet about, and that is what we're going to get out of this meeting. And think long term. Don't start getting into the nitty-gritty of thinking, oh, we must deal with this next week, we must do that. This is about long-term success and impact. And again, in all these changing times, you need your North Star. You need to know how you're going to get out of this pretty shitty tunnel. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's just going to be quite a hard walk to get there. But I think, again, you need the team with you to walk you through this tunnel. And then actually, essentially then, last point in action plan, which I forgot, is I would suggest, in terms of trying to take your way out of the daily-day daily-day work operations, I would suggest getting out of the office for those meetings. We are not short of lovely places, an hour's drive, 30 minutes drive from Riga, to get yourself out of the company, out of your house, we can socially distance at a place, but probably try and make that effort to get out and meet up with them, with your teams. Then you actually have your monthly brainstorming meetings, which at the end of the day is actually coming up the key results or the key ways, the KPIs that you can meet those objectives that you set in your action plan meeting. So this is a case of thinking, okay, we set a key objective to hit a sales target of whatever, 50,000 for next month. And then, or for next quarter, sorry. And then you actually start breaking that down. How are we going to do that? What can we do? Be creative, be innovative, think different. And that's what you do in your monthly brainstorming meetings. And again, you dedicate more time to thinking. There's no point trying to spend more time just sort of synergizing when you actually need to spend some time thinking and getting creative about what is going to be done to meet those objectives. And this is probably the most controversial meeting. Because at the end of the day, yes, we are trying to streamline meetings. I think that in many ways to streamline meetings, it seems counterintuitive to say that you should have more of them. But what I would say is actually having a daily check-in. I would recommend daily, but ideally twice weekly on a Monday or a Friday, just to have that touch point. Just to have that time just to say how things are going. And it might be that it's a 10-minute long meeting. It might be at the time you spent synergizing and just getting up to speed with everyone, it only takes 5 minutes to cut the meeting off and get on with your work. It saves admin. You do not need to be emailing people. You do not need the constant distraction of Slack pinging in your window. You can just get on with the work that you've got to do. And then obviously there are meetings that crop up. So we call them decision-making meetings, and they come up, but again, limit them between 30 and 60 minutes. And they've done, and it's important just to really communicate effectively in those meetings. Limit the time and just make sure you hit that red zone and there's a purpose behind the meeting before setting it. I am saying quite a lot of stuff all at once. It's the first time, actually, I've had the opportunity to share this methodology, but I just was wondering if anyone at this stage has any questions on this. Okay? If not, has anyone heard of OKRs? Objectives as measured by key results. Okay, one takeaway again. Good to see some hands. Has anyone read Measure What Matters? Cool. Okay. I would suggest by this time next year that we see more hands going up, because if we're working in HR, I think that is a groundbreaking book to read in terms of meeting design and productive meetings. How long have I got? How long? We're good. Okay, good. What we're doing. Right at this moment in time, we have a book, which is free. It's a work in progress. The beauty of doing an ebook is that you can continue to be adding to it, but at the moment the book is there. So feel free to download the book. Again, feedback would be really, really welcomed. I would be delighted to talk to companies that are struggling with this shift from, let's say, what was a normal meeting culture to now this virtual one. I'd happily sort of share some ideas and tips and areas that I think could help. And the software is available now. Use it. Who uses Outlook as their sort of their? Okay, that's a lot of you actually. Okay, so we do need to embed with Outlook and Microsoft Teams, because at the moment, who's a G Suite user? Right, G Suite is the way that we're working with at the moment. So definitely the G Suite users, but if there's a demand for Outlook, then we will start integrating with Outlook. And yeah, but currently the software is free to use, and it's, I hope, fairly intuitive in terms of onboarding and using the product. And then, yeah, we're going to be unpacking new features. One of the things that I like the prospect of is actually trying to give an engagement level of a meeting. And again, I think what this does is it probably shuts up the mouthy people and actually stimulates maybe some of the more introverted participants to share their thoughts, just to sort of keep the meeting engaged. Because at the end of the day, meetings are not an opportunity for a one-way traffic dialogue. If that's the case, probably don't have the meeting, it could be done in an email or with a simple video link that you send out, and if people want to watch it, they watch it. If not, then they don't. So I think it's a case of actually just being more mindful about what the purpose of the meeting is. And again, a core belief really, we are moving through a very interesting time, and I think probably what most executive boards are now thinking is, okay, we understand we've got to be flexible and we've got to enable people to work from home because the health of our workforce is our number one prerogative or priority. But at the end of the day as well, we also need to ensure that we're being productive. And so I think, again, it's this balance. How can we offer flexibility and being productive? And there has to be buy-in from the employee as well as the employer. And I think this is what we're trying to do, is just create this structure that actually that there's trust and there's confidence from both sides that we can do what needs to be done and remain healthy and productive as an organization and as a team. And at the end of the day, working from home, yes, it saves commute time. We have fewer distractions from colleagues. But I don't know about you, but it can get quite lonely. You know, it gets a bit depressing sometimes when you're not getting to meet up with your colleagues and have that little bit of banter over a coffee or whatever. And I think at the end of the day, if we can actually create meeting rhythms that help reduce that sense of loneliness and keep those daily touch points, that's not a bad thing. And at the end of the day as well, it enables us to do more things. If we can streamline meetings and make them more effective, yeah, we've got more time to spend with our family, or we've got more time to spend working productively and not being distracted. And also it might be that you want to spend more time in Latvia's beautiful nature, exploring and just being mentally and physically well, which at the end of the day is it should be everyone's number one priority, because if you're not healthy and happy, you're not going to be very good at work. And yeah, I think Anastasia had a picture of an iceberg. I believe that every presentation should have a quote from Steve Jobs. But it's really clear that the most precious resource we have is time. And I would really like to think that moving on, we can ensure that we have more productive, personal, and purposeful meetings, and hopefully with GetFocused. But even so, if you utilize some of these habits, I'm sure it could actually start impacting your meetings.